Jon Miller, Chris Williams. From the Channel Seed Studios, it's Miller and Williams. Presented by Wild Rose Casino and Hotel. 3 locations in Iowa. 3 times the fun. You'd rather be here. This is Iowa Everywhere.
What's up? Welcome to Miller and Williams. We are here recording on a Sunday because there's no 2 guys named Chris Monday this week. We're going to be on Tuesday because Hassel's traveling. And I thought it'd be perfect to get my main man, Jon Miller, on here because everybody wants a pod on a Monday morning, John.
They do. And just so for everyone listening, notice that he said my main man, John. That's not main man Chris. It's not main man Bloom. It's main man John. So, hey, John. I love you too. Feelings mutual.
My main man. We're presented, as always, by our friends at the Wild Rose Casinos in Clinton, Emmitsburg, and Jefferson. And we are in the Channel Seed Studios. I also want to give a shout out to a new sponsor, John. Have you ever flown a drone?
I have one. I've had it for 18 months and I've never flown it. Never flown it.
Probably not as badass as a Terraplex Ag drone. So
no way. No way.
God. These guys brought these drones over to the RV lot at Iowa State. And I got to fly them. These things are insane. They're like GP. You would have loved it because you're such a techie. So my guy Dustin has his phone out and he tells the drone where to go before it takes off. And it takes off and then it's like 35 miles per hour.
Wow.
You don't even have to fly it. It just does it all.
That's pretty amazing.
Terraplex Ag, if you're a farmer out there.
So many applications for agriculture.
Yes, that's the whole point. And if you're a farmer out there and you've been thinking about getting into that world, remember our friends from Terraplex. Okay, I have 2 topics I want to kill with you today because this will be a shorter show. It's not going to be a full hour. The one is, if Iowa's offense keeps getting better, will they bring back Brian Ferentz? 2, I want to talk about, so Lance Liepold, who Little Gracie's head coach, he's going to get tossed around with a bunch of these names, with a bunch of these schools. And so is Matt Campbell after Iowa State season. And I want to make a point, and I want to run it off of you. Well, let's start here. So let's say Texas A&M calls Lance Leipold or Matt Campbell, okay? Which I don't think Campbell would be a great fit there. I have no idea about Leipold, but whatever. Just hypothetically, Michigan State or Texas A&M comes calling. Yes, it is in the Big Ten or the SEC, which are the premier leagues going forward in college football. A lot more money there. You're going to make a lot more money. B, these are 2 coaches that have very established programs in a league where I think they both look at it and say, going forward, we can be really good. Like really good in this league with a chance to go to playoffs. Do you think let me put it this way. With the 12-team playoff, guaranteed spot, are you better off being in one of those type of Big 12 schools or being like a middle of the pack to third tier Big Ten or SEC school? Because I think Leipold specifically is really going to get tossed around here. I don't know about Matt. His name always comes up though. So I was just thinking about this, and you come at it with a different perspective with more of a Big Ten tilt. What do you think?
So I was just Googling Matt Leipold's age real fast. Okay, 59.
Lance
okay.
Leipold. I called him Matt.
Leipold. Yeah, he's 59. And is Matt even 40 yet?
Yes, he's like 3 years older than me. So yes,
so that's what, 42 somewhere there. Okay,
okay. Matt's 44, I think. I'm sorry,
44.
He's like
all right,
4 years older than me.
So there's a number of different ways to look at this. And just like I talked about either last week or 2 weeks ago, why I don't think Kleiman's going to leave Kansas State because of what he's communicated to people that I know very well, that he's just not a lifer. He's not going to be coaching in his 70s. He's got it. He's going to have financial security for his family, and he wants to do other things. We'll see if that plays out because the ego is a hell of a drug. If you get the call from Texas A&M and to a lesser degree Michigan State, you only leave if you get a 7-year deal that's going to pay, Texas A&M, if I'm coming in to get that job, I say, hey, it's going to be 7 years and it's going to be a minimum of $7 or $8 million, maybe more, because Texas A&M can swing that. They're doing $75 million in a write-off, and they have oil money endowments in that university that are simply incredible and nearly unmatchable by anyone else in this country. So, yes, you go exact your pound of flesh, and if I'm Lance Leipold, I'm gone. But then again, it comes down to this. What are your goals? Mm-hmm. Matt Campbell, 24. If he took either the Michigan State or the Texas A&M jobs, because Michigan State has a recent history. They paid their former coach over $90 million over seven. It was $90-some million. It was a ridiculous contract they paid him for 1 year of going 11-1. That didn't work out so well for them. They're going to be let off the hook financially, likely, because this was a for-cause firing. So that they have deep pockets too, because they're in the Big Ten. So if you would like to coach, maybe no more, if you're Matt Campbell, if you'd like to be done by the time you're 52, 53 years old, and then spend the rest of your life with family and never worry about money, and your children never worry about money, you take the job. Mm-hmm. If you are somebody that aspires to want to play in the playoff and be a regular, consistent player, and you don't want to leave the sport and you want to still live and hang around the locker room with these players, because that's what athletes and coaches miss more than anything, is the esprit de corps of being around teammates and or your players and the locker room. There's nothing in the world that replicates that once you're out of it. I've been told that by every player that I've ever known who's played in the NFL, and then they're done. They don't know sometimes what to do to replace their time with. I guess it just comes down to Lance's and Matt's career aspirations. But it's difficult to turn down generational, life-changing money. Now, Matt's already what's Matt making? $5 million a year? $4 million a year?
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, 5. He's probably got 4 or 5 years on that contract. So, I mean, you could say that Matt has FU money at this point in time in his life, and he does. We're talking about decreasing the amount of time you need to do it and doubling the money. You're talking about quality of life. So for each of these guys, that's my question. If I'm Lance Leipold at 58, 59, show me the money. I'm gone. Matt Campbell's a little different. He's younger. He still has mountains to climb, because it's not always about the money. I know when the old adage is, when people say it's not about the money, it's about the money. Not even 5 years ago, I left the best day job I ever had, working for one of the largest midstream NGL energy companies in the United States. It was a phenomenal job, but I wanted to start my own company, and I had a couple of guys I wanted to do it with. And I went to my wife and I said, hey, listen, this is a huge risk. I'm going to go from making the most money I've ever made to making nothing and no guarantees, and who knows if it'll work out. And she said, okay. Thankfully, she did. So now it's 5 years later. I didn't leave because of the money, because I felt I could make more on my own than I was making for another corporation. But for a lot of people, and entrepreneurs especially, it's not about the money. It's about the mountain. It's about climbing that mountain. It's about creating something that didn't exist before, imbuing something into existence and being successful at it. The money is a byproduct of climbing the mountain successfully. And I probably want to do the energy stuff for another 4 or 5 years, and then I'd never have to do anything else for the rest of my life. But I will, because there are more mountains to climb, and that's how I'm wired. I don't know how Lance Leipold's wired.
That's how Matt's wired.
I kind of get the feeling that Matt is a mountain man.
He is.
So I
don't think he'll leave, especially with the amount of young talent they have. I would be shocked with the adversity.
Given this, let's just hypothetically say he would turn down Texas A&M, or say turn down $7 or $8 million a year for Michigan State, turns it down. What job is out there for him to take then? Is it the NFL or stay at Iowa State? Because Iowa State, they're going to be an alpha in the new Big 12 football alignment.
He has turned down NFL jobs before. I know that.
So now let me just turn this to you. I've basically given the philosophical old man answer. What do you think specifically relative to Matt Campbell? What job would be out there that you could see him taking? Because it's not going to be another Big 12 job. And if it's in the Big 10 or the SEC, It needs to be a blue blood, so you're in
Yeah.
position to make that playoff, regularly.
I think that's
because
the key.
yeah,
I think it's the blue blood thing. I think he would take Notre Dame if that ever came up, because that was up, and I think that would have been a real thing had they come calling him. I think he would have taken USC had it been offered to him. Because it's one of the best jobs in college football.
Right.
I'm pretty sure he could have. I don't know if he could have had Florida State, but I'm pretty sure he could have when they hired Norvell, and he didn't. He didn't want it, from what I understand. I'm trying to think of some other ones. He's not like an Ohio State guy. But it feels like that would be a no-brainer, being that he's from there. It feels like Penn State's always been a job that I thought that he would. Michigan definitely would be, but they only hire their own. So who's going to get the Michigan job if Harbaugh leaves? Thought about that?
I don't. I
DeBoer
haven't
at
given it
Washington.
any
I heard
consideration.
him. I heard his name.
Who?
DeBoer, the head coach at Washington.
Gotcha.
I've heard his name.
Does he have Michigan connections? I don't know.
I don't know, but I know that his name's been thrown around. Those are the types of jobs, though. Like, I can't imagine Matt would be like, yeah, I've turned down NFL jobs. I told Nebraska I wasn't interested. I could have been to Florida State. Yeah, I'm going to go to East Lansing.
Makes no sense. Makes no sense. And again, as we analyze what the Big 12 looks like starting next year,
dude,
Iowa
I'm
State's,
telling you, if he stays long term, I think they're a top 3-4 program in that league.
I don't argue. I'm not arguing with you at all.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, and if they are that, and they make a playoff once every 4 or 5 years, Jamie's going to have to, hit Bloom up to work a little harder selling those signature series benches to get a little more capital to pay Matt more money, because
don't you have to sell a bench before you can sell more benches?
Look, dude, I did not come on here to offer up any Brent Bloom slander. All right, I'm not going to do that.
I trolled him yesterday.
If he thinks that's a troll, then he is too young to remember the magic that I once created. I tweeted at him. I tweeted at him.
Tell you hi.
I love Brent. Brent is just a younger and probably just as obnoxious version of me as when I was the same age. So I respect the game.
It's a different type of obnoxious.
I said Iowa had 0 penalties today, and I said at Brent Bloom, this happens against other teams too. And if that's a troll, bud, because that was a comeback at Brent complaining about the officiating, Iowa not having any penalties against Iowa State. This is not an irregular thing for Iowa.
You and Bloom are very different in your prime. Very different trolls.
How would you say that?
Bloom's are very, like, when you read his. Well, first of all, you got a radio show. You got a radio show, so like yours were just so much more in your face, obnoxious.
Oh,
you were like you were trying to be bombastic with your trolling.
Yeah, and you're saying Brent isn't? Because I follow him on Twitter.
Bloom,
and it takes a lot of discipline to not chime in.
Bloom, when he does it, it's so calculated that really he's trying to be the smartest guy in the room type of troll, but it's not as bombastic because he is thought when he hits post, he's thought through every comeback that you could have. Anybody. And he's setting it up for only the lowest common denominator to comment, and then they look just stupid because those types don't generally understand the level of trolling that he's on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, he's an elitist troll bully.
You are a blue collar bullshitter troll.
I am what I am.
Oh, you crazy bastards. Okay. Got that out. Okay. So now the Iowa game was wild yesterday. Okay. And we're just so everybody knows, you're probably listening to this Monday morning. We're recording this about 7:00 on Sunday night. The Iowa game was freaking wild because they actually had like a pulse on offense in the second half. And this Deacon Hill, he's not good, but he looked serviceable in the second half. And like Kirk Ferentz is crying on the sidelines. And there was just all this stuff happening. Like it was wild. And I'm not even an Iowa fan, and I was captivated by this. Like Kinnick Stadium was kind of like, oh, we don't even know what to do. We're scoring some touchdowns. And then Kirk does the whole thing in the post game where he gets super emotional. He's crying again. And I couldn't help but go there in my mind. What is Beth Getz thinking right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think they're going to the Nebraska game, I think, is a true toss-up. I think they'll beat Illinois next. I don't know. BMO will have them ready. But the worst case is 9-3 in the Big Ten championship game, right? Worst case.
Yeah, if you split the next two, that's your fate. 9-3 and the sacrifice. But you know what? You're there, so you got a chip in a chair, right?
I'm watching a man crying due to the emotional taxing that this whole thing has put on his family is what it felt like to me. I couldn't help but think about the future there. He brought up retirement, that was really weird how he did that in the post game thing.
I don't think it was weird. I think it's been out of context. I think that he's like, you know what? Sitting back and counting wins and milestones, that's for the off season and when you're retired. Okay. That's the context that he delivered that in.
What if Iowa has 2 more offensive performances like
they have a pulse?
But that's all you've needed, though, right?
Dude. I mean, I'm going to pull. You know what? Yeah, I'm going to pull this up right now. I'm going to pull up the NCAA statistics. I know right where to go, so don't worry. You know that I can fill and do multiple things with the best of them out here because I have a hypothesis, and I've said this for years. All Iowa needs to do is have an 80th best offense in the country. If they have an 80th best offense in the country, they're going to win 10 or 11 games every damn year. And right now I'm going to go down to 80, and 80th in the country is Virginia, and they averaged 369. Iowa had just over 400 yesterday, and just over 400 per game would put you in the top 50. You're talking national championship, because the defense in the last several years is played at the natty level. Now, I'm not saying Iowa would be hoisting multiple national championships because they don't have the skill position players that are needed to have when you get to that stage. But you're talking about a team that would have won the West for 3 or 4 or 5 years in a row if they would have had just an offense that was 80th or 90th best. Just don't be the worst and don't be historically bad. Now, relative to Deacon Hill, that second half yesterday, that is the type of performance that you want to see from him because it was a game-managing performance. He took what was there. His footwork actually was noticeably better in the second half than it was in the first half. He settled down and played within himself, almost as if he had some type of Zen session at halftime, and he cleared his mind out. And when he came out and the Iowa's offensive line, as banged up as they were coming out of the Northwestern game, they did a really good job in pass protection yesterday.
They were great. That was their best game of the year.
It was really good against the really salty Rutgers defense, who actually gave Ohio State a tougher time than they gave Iowa. And I'm not playing transitive properties here. So,
what are you trying to say?
No, I'm not. If Deacon Hill can play within himself, the next 2 weeks, Iowa will win these games by double digits.
Is there any scenario where Brian Ferentz is the coordinator next year?
I don't think so, and I think it makes me appreciate what Beth and President Wilson did more, and I knew why they did it when they did it, but this is just an example of why they did it when they did it. Because Iowa fans, the vast majority of Iowa fans love Kirk. I do too. The vast majority of fans who've been sitting here watching the worst offense in college football in the modern era, the last 2 years combined, probably have a case of Stockholm syndrome right now. So the first time Iowa looks like they have some competence, it's like, oh, great, he loves me. He didn't hit me tonight. I mean, that's what I think it is. And I think by Beth and President Wilson doing what they did when they did it, you eliminate the emotion. Brian Ferentz is not only being put out of the program because of having a horrific offense, because I don't even think it's mostly Brian's fault. I think there's always a limiter or a governor on Iowa's offense, and that is Kirk Ferentz. I think they did it because people in that university are sick and tired of the nepotism bullshit that Gary Barta allowed to happen with the loophole where Brian reported to him. When you have that, and you also have the worst offense in college football, you have more than enough basis to move on. So I'm glad they did it. And again, that's nothing against Brian, because I think it's going to force Kirk. Well, it's not going to force him to do anything, because if he didn't change when his son was the offensive coordinator, he's going to change when it's somebody who's not his son.
Not that it's perfect, but did you read Scott Docterman's list of potential replacements?
I did. Paul Chryst is who I would hire without even talking to anyone else.
Okay. If it's not
all Iowa needs are wrinkles.
If they hire that Wisconsin volunteer guy, like, you're not doing anything. Like, why'd you fire Brian Ferentz if you're going to hire that
Correct.
guy?
Correct. Bud Meyer.
I would go get the Wyoming guy.
Well, Tim Paulsek, yeah, he's somebody that would be capable.
Bring him back as your O-line coach.
Yeah, the offensive lineman loved him when he was there. I've talked with multiple parents of him. But, I think Paul Chryst, I think that, he and Kirk have a relationship that goes back a ways. Paul Chryst is going to probably bring some wrinkles. I think that Iowa now exploring more usage of non-outside zone and zone blocking schemes, the way that they always have, opens the door more for Paul Chryst. They did not use very much zone at Wisconsin. So I wouldn't expect Paul Chryst to come in and change things, but all Iowa needs is tweaks. They just need some tweaks. And I think that Paul Chryst is also a very accomplished play caller as well. Brian Ferentz did not ever call plays for an offense prior to becoming Iowa's offensive coordinator. Now, I'm not saying that's necessarily a prerequisite, but I think Paul Chryst stands a better chance of calling a better game than Brian Ferentz.
Yeah, I would agree. When I read that list last week, and it was just like, what are they going to, like, not telling you anything you don't know, but nothing's going to change with that group, right? Like, I mean, these are all guys. Chris would be the one, another head coach, beat Kirk Ferentz a lot. Like, I don't know how many times did Paul Chryst feel like enough.
Majority.
Yeah. Like, that would be a guy who, or is that another Greg Davis?
No, it's
Paul
not.
Chryst, that's what I was wondering.
It's not another Greg Davis, because I think Kirk will allow who he hires to come in and put some wrinkles in their own fingerprints-ish on it. Maybe it's the pinky finger. But Greg Davis came in and he wanted to employ this horizontal passing game that Texas used a lot when he was the OC there. It's just that Iowa doesn't have the athletes that they have at Texas, so that was a really shitty thing. A lot of these, the sight read type of background football where you don't really run routes that you see between Mahomes and Kelsey, and they have those were some wrinkles that he brought in, and it just didn't work. And I think that the wrinkles that Paul Chryst would bring in and employ are going to be much more palatable for Kirk. They'll be more in his wheelhouse. They'll be more, we're not talking high risk shit. So yeah, I think Paul Chryst would probably work out really well. And again, I think would call a better game. Iowa's biggest problem right now, other than just Kirk's stubborn aspects relative to his offense, is the offensive line development is nowhere near what it was going back 3 years ago, before and all throughout the Iowa football tenure. I don't know if that's a residual of Chris Doyle no longer being there. He was very much involved with the offensive line. Kirk Ferentz is involved with the offensive line. Brian Ferentz was there during a pretty good era, and they won that Joe Moore Award, although I think there were probably better units in the country that year than Iowa was. But Iowa's biggest problem right now is offensive line development.
Yeah, I did not understand how they won that award that year.
No, this should have been other years. But, they also lost a big time commit this past week from Cedar Rapids, a guy that had just moved in, and he decommitted. So Iowa's biggest problem moving forward is its offensive line development.
All right, before we wrap up, do you have any strong opinions on the Michigan Harbaugh thing? Because I thought it was weird over the week where you watch it, like, at first they're all like these hyper villains, Michigan was, and everybody was like, "Oh, Harbaugh's a cheater," and then it almost felt like by kickoff of that game over the weekend that there was sympathy for them.
Which is why you fire Brian Ferentz when you did, by the way. That's a microcosm of it. People, that's just
Good
human
point.
nature. I think most
Point.
people are willing to afford people second chances, and that's good. We all need second chances in life. We all need grace. And what I think about Michigan and Harbaugh and seeing them hunker down almost in a QAnon fashion is fuck Michigan forever. And
Dude,
I hope they never win another game. That's how I feel about Michigan.
Coordinator guy's response after the game was crazy.
Dude,
He's bawling.
it's cultish level shit. It's Jim Harbaugh is a unique character who I can't stand. Wouldn't be my fit, but you know what? A lot of people love him, and that's great. We are all different, and what's make the world go around. And there's people that don't like me and my persona, and that's okay. But no, my take on Michigan is that goes above and beyond the spirit of the sport. And yes, it sounds like Ohio State and some other schools gave Purdue some intel prior to Purdue playing against Michigan last year. That happens all the time. Yeah. That is different than deploying someone to go sit and in some instances go be on sidelines. And if you think this guy was just acting of his own volition and could get into these places and do these things, you probably would believe that, you probably believe an election was stolen in 2020.
Yeah, it crossed a line, no doubt. It was just the human psychology of it was fascinating to me last week because, like,
and the psychology
like that game's kicking off, and people are like, "Oh, poor Harbaugh," and it's like, "Whoa, wait a minute!" Like a week ago, he was the devil, you know?
Yep. Yeah. Hey, before we go, what would you give to spend a night at Skinwalker Ranch?
A lot.
Well, I may have a hookup for you next summer. Okay.
You just gonna leave me like that?
I may or may not have just hired someone to work for my company who has a very, very close family relative who is a part of the working staff presently at that.
Have you asked questions about the ranch?
Not yet. I felt I wanted to get this guy in the family before I started to geek out on this with him. But gonna spend a lot of time with him at different sales conferences and conventions, and I'm gonna get to the bottom of it. Gonna get to the bottom. Ooh, yeah, dude. I've been waiting to hear back from you on December circa for like a while.
I don't think December's happening, but yeah.
Oh God, had the hall pass.
Well, we'll get you. Right. We're gonna do it. It's just I got to work out a few things, and then we'll. So anyway, you hired somebody. For those people who don't know, Skinwalker Ranch is in Utah. There's all sorts of UFO sightings over it, paranormal. Many people believe it to be a portal.
Really, really weird geomagnetic events that can't be explained. Also, elements of radiation burns at various places on the property.
Have you watched the show?
Some acres. No, I didn't watch the show. I watched an interview on YouTube this past week from the guy that bought it in 2016, who's now the owner. And he was name checking the guy's dad, the person I just hired, his family member.
That like hedge fund.
He was name checking him,
right?
Yeah,
like a hedge fund guy.
And a Utah real estate magnate. And I'm skeptical, as you know, on these things. But I listened to him talk and his explanations and his first-hand accounts. I'm no longer skeptical. Something really weird's going on there. I mean, Harry Reid, former United States, was it a congressman or senator? He was part of an investigation by the government into this area. And people's cell phones just turning all different colors, and everyone's cell phones doing that at certain locations. Dude just walking around and not realizing that 10 minutes of his life just passed by, and everyone's like, dude, what's wrong with you?
What about all the cattle mutilations?
Cattle mutilations where the desecrated corpses wouldn't be touched by any natural carnivores that are on the property, and there's coyotes everywhere, and there's vultures, and these things are untouched almost up to a year later. Really weird stuff. I do love that gateway portal conspiracy. Now, I will say, I think that is probably within the realm of the ancient Yellowstone caldera. And I don't know if there's anything funky that happened when that baby blew 700 and some thousand years ago. And we're overdue for that one, by the way. Don't worry about it. If it happens, we're all dead. But yeah, it's all fascinating. You knew about the Yellowstone caldera, right?
No, but I'm going to look into it now. Send me some stuff.
Calderas. Yeah, you're
portal
talking about
stuff is
massive.
Weird to me. Because
what's weird? The portal?
Well, did you listen to my CW pod with the paranormal investigator a few weeks ago?
Not all the way through, but I will. I did listen to the part where you freaked me out.
Well, we were talking about portals. Because this is one thing that I just like. You know, we all have our limits with anything.
Yeah, we do.
And the portal thing is always, to me, it's like, okay, like I believe that there's ghosts, and I think there's unidentified flying objects, and that many of them are unexplainable. And like, you're right, you guys know where I am. Like the portal thing seems weird to me. That all of a sudden, like, you're in a different dimension. But there's a theory, you know, we got the elementary school out here in Farrar. That's the portal theory that going on out there. A lot of people think that by the old oak tree.
Are they talking about portals being gateways connecting
to hell,
parallel universes?
Yeah.
Okay. I think theoretically, I think Einstein, the Einstein-Rosen bridge, which basically is about the formation and creation of wormholes that allows you to travel great distances at greater than light speed. But even though you're not basically traveling any greater than light speed, you're just basically folding space and shortcutting it. I think Einstein has a theory relative to multiverses, parallel universes. Obviously, we've seen a lot of that in the Marvel, the MCU universe, and that probably was a lot of people's introduction to what a multiverse is. But I think for those of you that watched the TV show Lost, I think that there was a multiverse thing going on there. I think it's possible. I don't know how to, and maybe in some other universe, that place there in Bondurant Farrar, that elementary, and the Axe murder house down where you're from, maybe some things happen there, bleed over. I don't know, but I think scientifically that can make sense to me because a lot of what Einstein talked about has come to bear, and I think ultimately the universe is a math equation anyway.
Could you do me a favor and text me the cell phone number of this guy you just hired?
No.
No, I just
we'll get there.
I just want to
we'll
tell
get there,
him
bud.
He's going to work for a great guy.
Yeah.
Nothing self-serving.
Right. You'll get there. Listen,
could you get him to come on the CW pod?
I bet if his family member's allowed to come on, I could get that person. You don't want him. You want
I want the real thing.
Yeah. Now I may want to launch a JM pod on this network myself, and that might be my first guest. I've been pinging.
You want to openly compete with me?
You know me. It's about the mountain, buddy. I want to climb. I want to do something on this network so I can get as much production time committed to me as the Hassel and Williams show. That would be good because I think it'd help our numbers.
We will. We just have to wait until January.
I'm just shitting. I don't care.
No, but it's true.
About that. I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Aiden starts full time in January.
That's great. He's really good, really responsive. But yeah, I mean, at some point in time, I want to do a podcast like that, and I'd really like to do it with you. I just, it may take a few years for us to get there.
Well, I need to stop trying to climb mountains.
Yeah, right. I think you and I could put forth we could put forth a really entertaining every topic podcast.
I do too. Maybe that's just what this is going to just be.
I hope it is. Maybe we should. Let's do it.
It's the middle of college football, and we just spent the last 15 minutes on Skinwalker Ranch and portals.
And if people are listening to this or watching this, I would wager, notice our facial expressions, notice the energy that we had,
We're way
this
happier.
part versus the past, and that lets you know where our passions lie. We're weird, we're kooky, and let's get weird together.
Yeah, deal with it, everybody. Thanks to our friends at Wild Rose Casinos in Jefferson, Emmitsburg, and Clinton. Do you want to go? So real quick, I'm going on a hunt over there with my buddy who was on the ghost hunter. She's taking me. We're gonna Van Winkle's gonna video record the whole thing. We're gonna do a real hunt. Do you want to go? You want to be a part of this?
I mean, there is a part of me that would love to do it because I think it would be hilarious. The other part of me,
you can't do it if you're gonna be a dick.
Do you think I would do that?
Absolutely.
I mean, I would not ever embarrass you or put you in a bad light with people that you know. And I'm not saying I disbelieve it. Maybe hilarious is the wrong choice of words. I think it'd be exhilarating. How about that? But there's a little part of me that's like, do not F around with this shit.
So that's funny you say that, because this is what one of my best friends is, a PhD biological chemist, whatever. He's freaking genius.
You had him on your podcast.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's one of the he's the smartest human I know. Well, and he's one of my best friends. He's Mr. Science. If he can't directly prove it, then it doesn't exist.
I love that already. It has to be objective truth or it's not true. I'm with him, simpatico.
So he's like very skeptical of all this because that's, science like doesn't indicate that spirit's watching me right now, right? Like it's kind of like, can't prove that really, right? Well, I always tell him like, okay, big shot, go on a ghost hunt with me. Let's go. And I'm going to lock your ass in there for the entire night by yourself. If you're not worried about it, if you know they don't exist, just go.
I would be so pissed at you if you ever did that to me. It would be, I'd break windows, I'd get out, and then I'd come for you. By the way, there's one thing. While I'm 99% scientific. Give me objectable truth. But the 1%, does love exist? In your opinion, is love real?
Yeah. I mean, haven't you seen
I agree.
Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce?
Absolutely. No greater example than my neighbor Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and their relationship. Science can't measure it. They can't break down the components of it, but every living human on this planet would likely say that love exists. And science also can't prove necessarily, relative to A plus B equals C, what dark matter is. Dark matter has been a placeholder in the standard model of particle physics for a long time.
You always come back to dark matter.
Otherwise, the standard model of particle physics and our understanding of the universe would not work mathematically. So love exists, dark matter or something exists. Science can't measure it. So science doesn't get it right all the time, but the majority of the time I will align with science.
His name is Jon Miller. My name is Chris Williams. Again, two guys named Chris will be on Tuesday and Thursday this week. And then Hassel's coming to Ames. He's calling the Texas game.
Oh, fantastic.
If you want to come on up, John, make room for you in the camper.
What date is it?
This Saturday.
Let's see. I'm not going to rule it out, but I had a procedure last week and I'm still not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, the old I won't say it.
It's okay. Happens to all of us.
Snip, snip.
Yeah, you've done commercials for vasectomies, and apparently you're still out firing loaded
I'm an elite
bullets.
Actor.
It's true.
People
you
want
are.
my services. I can't blame them. All right. He's Jon Miller. I'm Chris Williams. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week.